From pipe to platform, why telcos must own the marketplace, not just the last mile. About a year ago, during a closed-door advisory with the leadership of a major telco, I put forward a recommendation that drew both curiosity and caution. Build your own digital marketplace. Not another bundle, not another billing wrapper. A full-scale, cross-hyperscaler, cross-SaaS platform, curated, governed, and monetized under the telco's own brand. The hesitation in the room was understandable. Telcos have burnt their hands before. Think back to the early 2010s, when many jumped to resell Google Cloud and others. On paper, it looked promising. In practice, they walked away with mere cents on the dollar. The revenue model was thin. Support was limited to L0, and the experience was disjointed. Billing systems weren't integrated. Provisioning was manual, and there was little to no automation. Most telcos didn't even have internal cloud platforms mature enough to handle at-scale deployments. Fast forward to today, and both sides of the market, buy and sell, have evolved dramatically. Enterprises are no longer looking for single-point solutions. They want trusted platforms that simplify procurement, ensure compliance, and integrate billing, support, and operations. Telcos, meanwhile, have quietly matured their cloud, security, and orchestration capabilities. Some now rival hyperscalers in local execution strength. Historically, telcos have been cautious about venturing into digital marketplaces due to several interrelated factors. The substantial capital required to develop and maintain sophisticated telecom networks has strained financial resources, making additional investments in new platforms daunting. Furthermore, the complexity of integrating new marketplace solutions with existing legacy systems poses significant operational challenges. Organizational inertia and a traditional focus on connectivity services have also contributed to a slower adoption of marketplace models. However, as the digital landscape evolves and customer expectations shift, the imperative for telcos to embrace digital marketplaces becomes increasingly clear. This Greyhound dossier makes the case for why telcos must rethink their role, not as resellers in someone else's marketplace, but as platform orchestrators. We'll break down what's changed, where the opportunity lies, and what it takes to win. Because in this next chapter, the telco that doesn't own the platform risks becoming just another line item on someone else's invoice. At Greyhound Research, we believe telcos are no longer peripheral to the enterprise transformation story. They are central to it. Their ability to reimagine themselves as orchestrators of trust, policy, and distribution marks not just a commercial pivot, but a strategic necessity. This is not about chasing cloud resale margins. It's about claiming relevance in a platform-first economy. What exactly is a telco-led marketplace? And why should the enterprise care? Enterprise IT leaders today are not looking for another place to shop. They're looking for a place to simplify. In an environment where sovereign cloud mandates are gaining urgency, where SaaS bills are spiking across fragmented lines of business, and where managing compliance across multiple jurisdictions has become a full-time job, the idea of a neutral, integrated, locally governed digital marketplace is more than convenient. It's strategic. This is where a telco-led marketplace re-enters the frame, not as a resale gimmick, but as an architectural response to a decade of complexity, lock-in, and overspend. And telcos aren't just another player in the digital stack. They're the bedrock for the next wave of enterprise innovation. As carriers of 5G, private LTE, edge connectivity, and the physical internet, telcos are the natural harbingers of real-world digital transformation. Every major industry trend, from IoT to autonomous logistics to smart healthcare, depend on the kind of low-latency, high-availability infrastructure that only telcos can provide. When they bring that to the table in a packaged offering alongside vertical SaaS, the so-called pipe-up play, they unlock value that no hyperscaler, no systems integrator, and no standalone SaaS vendor could deliver. This isn't bundling. It's full-stack, sector-specific orchestration, and telcos are the only ones with the muscle and the mandate to pull it off. Let's take stock. Most large enterprises across BFSI, healthcare, manufacturing, and the public sector now operate on at least 2, often 3, hyperscalers. The benefits of best-of-breed architectures have been eclipsed by the burden of managing them. CIOs are grappling with multi-line billing. Legal teams are negotiating data, residency, clause by clause. Security heads are duplicating policies across environments. The result? Governance sprawl, operational fatigue, and a sharp erosion in the cost-to-value ratio. According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 72% of enterprise CIOs admit that they are currently overspending across SaaS and cloud categories due to a lack of unified procurement and usage visibility. And 64% say they are open to routing at least a portion of that spend through a local, regulated marketplace, provided it offers billing clarity, service-level transparency, and sovereign compliance by design. Enter the telco. Telcos are no longer just bandwidth providers. Over the past 5 years, the most ambitious among them have quietly matured their capabilities in sovereign cloud hosting, managed security, and localized service operations. Unlike hyperscalers, they carry public trust, regulatory experience, and last-mile reach to stitch together a procurement experience that respects both complexity and control. But this isn't just about what telcos can offer. It's about what enterprises actually want. Enterprises want to avoid lock-in. They want multi-cloud optionality without integration chaos. They want to reduce SaaS sprawl without re-architecting everything. They want single-window billing, local language support, industry-specific SLAs, and increasingly policy-aligned software delivery mechanisms that can adapt to evolving compliance landscapes, whether in the US, the EU, India, or the Gulf. A telco-led marketplace, done right, is not a hyperscaler alternative. It is a post-hyperscaler abstraction layer, one that brings together AWS, Azure, GCP, Oracle, and a constellation of vertical SaaS players into a unified, governed platform curated for local needs. Per a recent Greyhound field note, a financial services firm is navigating a sprawling SaaS environment touching 50-plus vendors across 3 clouds. The firm's CIO estimated that 20 to 25% of total cloud and SaaS spend was unaccounted for in business case reviews. Worse, multiple applications were performing overlapping functions, with no centralized onboarding, billing, or exit planning. The root cause? No single platform to orchestrate procurement or usage tracking. The leadership had considered multiple hyperscaler marketplaces but found them insufficient for sovereign requirements. They needed a neutral, regulator-aligned control layer, one that could combine infrastructure, application, and security governance without triggering new integration costs. A telco-led marketplace emerged as a strategic alternative, one that blended procurement, onboarding, billing, and compliance into a single lane of control. Telcos have tried marketplace plays before and failed. The reasons are well known: poor automation, disconnected billing, no service orchestration, and weak monetization models. Most telcos acted as resellers, not orchestrators. They lacked the cloud maturity, partner operating models, and executive commitment required to make platform thinking real. But that was then. Today, many telcos have upgraded their internal cloud platforms, built sovereign hosting zones, hired partner monetization heads, and launched vertical-specific service plays in sectors like SME, health tech, and logistics. The foundational layers are in place. What's needed now is a mindset shift, from selling bundles to owning distribution, from riding someone else's stack to curating across stacks, from surviving on margins to monetizing trust and orchestration. This isn't a small pivot. It's a platform redefinition, but the window is narrow. If telcos don't act now, hyperscalers will eat what's left of the local marketplace opportunity, leaving telcos with the pipes, but not the platform. Because in 2025, enterprise IT doesn't need more choices. It needs fewer, better curated ones. And the telco, with its regulatory familiarity, customer trust, and infrastructure maturity, is uniquely positioned to deliver that across regions. At Greyhound Research, we believe the telco marketplace is not just a product play, it's a positioning play. It allows telcos to shift from being connectivity utilities to becoming curators of trust and integration. Their unique ability to package infrastructure with vertical SaaS, governed by policy and delivered at scale, sets them apart in a fragmented, hyperscaler-first world. Done right, this is not a catalog. It's control wrapped in context. The shift from Telco-as-Reseller to Telco-as-Orchestrator. For most of the past decade, telcos have played a limited role in the broader software and cloud economy. Faced with internal pressure to diversify revenue and stay relevant in the digital era, many defaulted to low-effort reseller partnerships with cloud providers and SaaS vendors. The logic was simple: use existing enterprise relationships to push known tools, collect modest commissions, and avoid the cost or complexity of owning the customer experience. But that model, built on visibility, not value, has now reached its limit. Today's enterprise buyers are not looking for agents who can sell them more licenses. They're looking for partners who can reduce complexity, consolidate procurement, manage compliance, and offer accountability that spans infrastructure, application, and policy domains. In short, they want orchestration, not resale. This is not just a channel conflict. It's a structural shift in enterprise expectations. Telcos that continue to act like catalog distributors for cloud vendors risk irrelevance. What's needed now is a complete redefinition of their role, from passive resellers to active orchestrators of digital ecosystems. According to a recent Greyhound field note, a large telco had launched a marketplace initiative with a leading hyperscaler. The model was largely cosmetic listings, links, and top-level marketing efforts with minimal back-end integration or ownership. For the first year, usage looked promising. But by year 2, enterprise customers reported unresolved support tickets, billing mismatches, and compliance blind spots. Several BFSI and healthcare clients pulled out, citing a lack of data residency guarantees and ambiguous SLAs. Internally, the telco had no visibility into usage data or customer success metrics, making account expansion and service innovation nearly impossible. The lesson was clear. By playing a middleman in someone else's ecosystem, the telco had ceded all strategic control and most of the profit. It had failed to differentiate. Worse, it had failed to defend its own relevance. What telcos must now recognize is that they are no longer competing for transactional resale margin. They are competing to own the enterprise control plane. This means building the pipes, yes, but also designing the procurement flows, defining the policy guardrails, integrating the onboarding and billing mechanisms, and curating the software stacks that enterprises actually need. In this new paradigm, telcos must stop thinking of marketplaces as storefronts. Instead, they must treat them as infrastructure programmable, governable, and vertically aware. The telco marketplace is not a place to display offerings. It is a place to embed policy, automate provisioning, and enforce compliance. This shift also demands a change in monetization models. The future is not in license markup. It is in usage-based billing, partner revenue sharing, and curated bundles that deliver higher order value, such as a regulatory compliant health stack for hospitals or a cloud and security starter pack for SMEs. The value lies not in the individual services, but in the way they are integrated, priced, and supported. More importantly, telcos must move from reactive partnership enablement to proactive service design. That means working with SaaS vendors, industry regulators, and compliance officers to co-create solution bundles that address real operational and regulatory needs, not generic app catalogs with infinite, undifferentiated choice. According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 58% of enterprise CIOs are willing to consolidate their SaaS and cloud procurement under a single partner, but only if that partner can offer end-to-end transparency, sovereign data compliance, and multi-cloud neutrality. Notably, 42% of these CIOs identified telcos as their preferred route, but only if telcos evolve beyond their legacy resale role and step into platform orchestration. This is the tension. The relationships already exist. The trust already exists. What's missing is the architectural and organizational will to own the platform. Not the app, not the offer, the platform. The implications of missing this moment are serious. Hyperscalers are moving fast. AWS is localizing its marketplace. Microsoft is pushing deeper into regulated verticals. Google is strengthening its edge-to-cloud delivery stack. If telcos delay, or worse, repeat the mistakes of the past, they will find themselves outflanked not only in the platform game, but in the infrastructure game as well. But if they move now, with seriousness, with sovereignty, and with systems, they can deliver something hyperscalers cannot. They can deliver trust. They can deliver vertical specificity. They can deliver compliance by design, not as an add-on. And that is what the enterprise wants most right now. A partner that can simplify chaos without adding risk. A telco that doesn't just carry the signal, but orchestrates the ecosystem. At Greyhound Research, we believe the real risk telcos face is not from missing out on new tools. It's from failing to evolve their role in the enterprise stack. This shift from resale to orchestration isn't optional. It's a structural redefinition of value. Telcos that continue to act as distributors will be commoditized. Those that step up as orchestrators of services, compliance, and experience will become indispensable. The governance multiplier. Why telco-led marketplaces enable strategic control. The traditional rationale for telco marketplaces has always revolved around revenue diversification. Sell more apps, capture some partner margin, and keep customers within the telco's ecosystem. But in 2025, that rationale is no longer sufficient or even relevant. Today's enterprise buyers aren't asking for more software. They're demanding more control. What's emerging instead is a new logic, one where the telco marketplace becomes less about commerce and more about compliance, less about app listings, more about policy execution. In this new construct, the real value of a telco-led marketplace lies not in the catalog, but in the control plane it provides across infrastructure, applications, identity, and data. This is the governance multiplier. across verticals, from banking to healthcare to public infrastructure. Enterprise CIOs and CISOs are being asked the same uncomfortable questions. Can we prove that our SaaS vendors are compliant with domestic data laws? Can we guarantee that our cloud providers respect jurisdictional boundaries? Can we audit who accessed what, when, and where across third-party environments? Most cannot. And as compliance frameworks mature, whether under the US Cloud Act, India's DPP Act, the EU's Digital Markets Act, or the UAE's Federal Cloud Directives, alongside emerging AI governance codes across APAC and EMEA, these gaps are becoming board-level liabilities. This is precisely where a telco-led marketplace can become indispensable. Unlike hyperscaler-operated marketplaces, which are built for global scale and often treat localization as an overlay, a telco marketplace is rooted in domestic legal structures, sectoral compliance norms, and sovereign control expectations. It starts with the assumption that compliance is not something to be added later. It is the foundation. According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 54% of enterprise CIOs in regulated sectors such as BFSI, public healthcare, and critical infrastructure now say that cloud and SaaS compliance enforcement has become a board-mandated KPI. A further 61% reported that their current vendor marketplaces, mostly operated by hyperscalers, provide little to no native support for local compliance constructs beyond surface-level residency tagging. Telcos, by contrast, are already built to operate under local regulation. Their billing systems are audited. Their networks are licensed. Their customer data policies are governed by telecom regulations. Many have long-standing relationships with national telecom and financial regulators, enabling them to extend this trust into digital marketplaces. Extending this governance posture into the digital marketplace is not a reinvention. It is a natural evolution. And in fact, telcos have already proven they can orchestrate at scale. Their consumer mobile applications are living, breathing examples of what it means to integrate diverse services into a single, controlled experience. Most advanced telcos today offer apps that consolidate internal offerings, partner content, third-party services, billing, account management, and support, all within a unified interface. Customers don't need to call a contact center anymore. They self-serve. They raise tickets. They configure plans. They also consume partner content alongside core telco services. In short, telcos have already eaten their own dog food. They've shown they can build trusted platforms that manage complexity behind the scenes while empowering users with transparency and control. The same principle now needs to be extended to the enterprise stack. According to a recent Greyhound field note, a telco client working with a consortium of regional banks was able to design a marketplace offering with pre-embedded compliance templates aligned to regional norms. These included secure onboarding paths for third-party SaaS vendors, tokenized billing integrations, and data isolation guarantees by default. This approach not only reduced the bank's internal due diligence burden, but also enabled faster rollout of new digital services, with audit confidence built in from day one. The compliance conversation also opens the door to more intelligent policy orchestration. Instead of treating every customer the same, the telco marketplace can dynamically enforce different guardrails based on sector, geography, user type, or transaction sensitivity. A hospital group accessing AI imaging tools, for instance, can be routed through a higher compliance workflow with embedded consent management and runtime encryption. This ability to enforce policy through infrastructure, not just process, is where the telco gains lasting strategic leverage. There's also a geopolitical dimension to this. With data sovereignty becoming a central theme of digital policy across the globe, enterprises are being pushed, sometimes by law, often by risk committees, to move away from black box infrastructure. Hyperscalers, despite their compliance white papers and public cloud local zones, are still seen as global first entities. Telcos, especially those with sovereign cloud capabilities, are increasingly viewed as the safer base layer, a partner who is both accountable and auditable. And the pressure is mounting. In sectors like insurance, education, and healthcare, regulators are drafting frameworks that demand not just data storage within borders, but full-stack traceability, cross-vendor access controls, and end-to-end monitoring of digital services. Enterprises that continue to rely on fragmented vendor ecosystems with no central compliance visibility are fast approaching a governance cliff. This is the inflection point. Telcos can step in to offer what no hyperscaler currently does: a natively governed marketplace. One where every service comes with a built-in compliance posture. One where onboarding triggers data classification. One where billing is tied to legal contracts, not just usage logs. One where regulators are not just accommodated, but architected into the system. This isn't about replacing cloud vendors. It's about regulating them intelligently, consistently, and contextually. The enterprise no longer needs a bigger marketplace. It needs a more defensible one. And in a world where compliance is becoming the new currency of trust, telcos have a chance to build something that transcends software, a distribution layer that encodes governance into the very fabric of enterprise IT. At Greyhound Research, we believe governance is not a checkbox. It's a competitive advantage. Telcos have the regulatory DNA, operational trust, and policy-aligned infrastructure to turn compliance into a platform capability. This is where their real leverage lies. In a world demanding transparency, traceability, and control, the Telco-Led marketplace can become the governance layer enterprises didn't know they needed, but will no longer be able to operate without. Do you even need this? The internal questions to ask first. A Telco-Led marketplace might sound like a compelling strategy, but not every telco is ready to execute on it, nor should every enterprise default to adopting it. As with any platform shift, the first step is not deployment. It's diagnosis. Not all enterprise environments require this level of orchestration. Not all workflows need compliance overlays. And not every telco has the internal maturity, organizational, architectural, or operational to deliver the marketplace as a governed control plane. The question every leadership team must ask is simple, but non-negotiable. Do we actually need this? And are we ready to own it? For telcos, the key question is not whether marketplaces are a revenue opportunity. They are. The deeper question is whether they are positioned to make the shift from connectivity to curation. That shift demands internal capability in 4 dimensions: real-time billing integration, partner ecosystem governance, sovereign cloud maturity, and operational control over onboarding and support. Without these, a marketplace becomes just another web portal, not a distribution layer. According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, nearly 47% of telcos who had piloted SaaS marketplaces in the last 3 years admitted that their efforts stalled due to internal readiness gaps. The most cited issues were a lack of orchestration tooling, the absence of partner revenue management models, and insufficient support structures for enterprise-grade service delivery. These failures weren't technical. They were structural and avoidable. From the enterprise side, the decision to engage with a telco marketplace must begin with clear use cases. If the business operates entirely on a single hyperscaler, with no cross-jurisdictional compliance burden or vendor sprawl, the need for a curated marketplace may be marginal. But that scenario is increasingly rare. In most large enterprises today, especially in BFSI, pharma, healthcare, and manufacturing, the reality is quite different. Workflows are split across cloud vendors. SaaS tools are managed in departmental silos. Billing is fragmented across finance systems. And compliance is monitored manually, often after the fact. For these organizations, the risk isn't in adopting a marketplace. It's in continuing to operate without one. Still, this is not a plug-and-play opportunity. A marketplace, by definition, reshapes internal power structures, both in the telco and in the buying enterprise. It changes how vendors are managed. It redefines who owns compliance. It introduces new billing constructs, onboarding paths, and support workflows. And most importantly, it changes the rhythm of customer engagement, from static contracting to dynamic orchestration. According to a recent Greyhound field note, a large telco serving state government departments attempted to build a digital public services marketplace. The initial design was well received, but the pilot failed within months. Why? Because while the infrastructure worked, the operational model did not. There was no single team accountable for onboarding partner vendors. Billing escalations were passed between departments. Data governance protocols were inconsistently enforced. The platform became a political football, and the opportunity was lost, not because of the tech, but because the telco had underestimated the coordination required to run a marketplace like an enterprise product. This is the trap many telcos fall into, treating the marketplace as a project rather than a product. A true marketplace is a living system, one that requires roadmap thinking, vendor lifecycle management, customer support design, and performance analytics. It needs to be staffed, funded, measured, and evolved like any other P and L-bearing business unit. For enterprises evaluating whether to route spend through a telco marketplace, the readiness questions are equally unforgiving. Can the marketplace provide multi-cloud visibility across critical workloads? Does it offer billing transparency and compliance traceability that is in line with industry standards? Is support governed through SLA-backed workflows or routed through generic Tier 1 queues? And perhaps most importantly, does it enable exit planning, not just onboarding? A growing number of CIOs are now adding marketplace compatibility to their vendor evaluation matrices, not as a procurement preference, but as a governance requirement. If a new SaaS partner cannot onboard through a governed, sovereign-friendly marketplace, the risk assessment score goes up, and the procurement cycle slows down. The fundamental truth is this: the complexity of software consumption is outpacing most enterprises' ability to govern it. Telcos that step in with a credible, well-architected marketplace can help solve that. But only if both sides, seller and buyer, approach the opportunity with clear-eyed awareness of what it demands. This is not a side hustle. It's not a marketing layer. And it's not a way to squeeze margin out of legacy telco infrastructure. Done right, a marketplace becomes the connective tissue of modern enterprise IT. Done poorly, it becomes shelfware, expensive, overbuilt, and politically radioactive. And in today's environment of regulatory scrutiny, margin pressure, and architectural fragility, that's a risk neither telcos nor enterprises can afford to misread. But if telcos get this right, if they learn to operate marketplaces not as side projects, but as programmable infrastructure, the next frontier opens almost automatically: the data marketplace. Few entities have the kind of granular, longitudinal, and infrastructure-level visibility that telcos do. From core connectivity to content partnerships, and from customer usage patterns to application-layer telemetry, telcos are sitting on deep reservoirs of behavioral and transactional intelligence. Properly anonymized and governed, this data is not just exhaust, it's enterprise-grade insight. As enterprises look to personalize experiences, localize services, and ethically monetize interactions, the opportunity to activate this data through a compliant, curated marketplace becomes enormous. Telcos can enable regulated sectors to run benchmarks, feed AI models with real-world patterns, enrich industry-specific applications, and even support responsible advertising, not with surveillance, but with consented, policy-aligned intelligence. In that vision, the telco doesn't just become a software distributor. It becomes a trusted steward of digital intelligence, curating not just services, but the signals that power them. And that, more than anything else, is where the true strategic moat lies. At Greyhound Research, we believe not every telco should race to launch a marketplace, but every telco should ask if they're structurally ready to own the next layer of enterprise engagement. This isn't about chasing a trend. It's about confronting whether your organization is built to orchestrate services, manage partners, and deliver policy as product. The right question isn't can we build it? It's can we run it like a platform business? The operational playbook, how to build this into the enterprise stack. The path to a successful telco-led marketplace is not a single leap. It's a staged evolution, one that starts with tactical wins, but builds toward long-term platform ownership. Done right, it begins with software, scales through ecosystem integration, deepens through compliance, and culminates in data stewardship. This is not a quick build. It is a layered capability stack, each phase reinforcing the next. Phase 1. Curate and launch the software marketplace. The first step is building the marketplace, but building it right. This is where the telco must move beyond basic bundling or static product listings. The goal here is to launch a curated, vertically aware digital storefront that offers real value, sector-specific SaaS bundles, pre-negotiated contracts, embedded onboarding, and real-time billing. This phase requires internal rewiring. Product managers must think like platform owners. Legal and compliance teams must co-design service workflows. Partner operations must evolve from margin management to lifecycle orchestration. And most critically, billing and identity systems must be refactored to accommodate usage-based metering, regionally compliant invoicing, and role-based access control. Done well, this phase establishes the foundation, a marketplace built on integration, not inventory. Building the marketplace is not a solo effort. Telcos must be open to partnering with IT services firms that bring deep expertise in automation, not just for ticketing, but for service management, application monitoring, and ongoing modernization. These firms already operate mature practices that can plug directly into marketplace operations, helping telcos scale L2 support and deliver SLA-bound enterprise-grade service experiences. Additionally, telcos must formalize engagement models with software vendors that extend beyond listing partnerships. These software providers are often best placed to offer L3 and L4 support, particularly for complex, verticalized applications. The telco marketplace must be architected with a layered support model. L0, L1, and portions of L2 can remain internal, but L2 and L3 should be designed for handoff to IT service providers, and L3, L4 escalations routed to software principals. Without this orchestration, The marketplace risks becoming an incomplete experience, one that breaks down the moment complexity enters the service lifecycle. Phase 2. Aggregate existing marketplaces across hyperscalers. Once the internal marketplace is running, the next phase is not competition. It's aggregation. This is the phase where telcos must integrate, not replicate, the hyperscaler marketplaces. AWS Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, Google Cloud Marketplace, Oracle Cloud Marketplace. Rather than trying to displace them, the telco should pull them into its own curated control layer, exposing approved listings, bundling pre-integrated offerings, and enforcing a unified governance experience across clouds. In this construct, the telco marketplace becomes a meta-platform, a horizontal integration layer that lets enterprises consume best-of-breed services across hyperscalers, but with localized billing, sovereign compliance, and enterprise-grade support. This is not about building a bigger catalog. It's about rationalizing choice. Aggregation means the telco can enforce vertical SLAs, enable one-click procurement across vendors, and support policy-defined deployment workflows, all without the enterprise having to manage each cloud marketplace individually. According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 68% of enterprise CIOs operating in multi-cloud environments say they are actively seeking a way to simplify procurement and policy enforcement across hyperscaler ecosystems. The telco marketplace can answer that call, not by offering more software, but by offering more control. This is the moment where telcos stop acting like storefronts and start behaving like infrastructure integrators. Phase 3. Embed policy and sovereignty by design. With aggregation in place, the marketplace can now evolve into a compliance enforcement layer. This is the phase where the telco differentiates itself completely by embedding policy directly into service flows. Compliance with regulations such as the U.S. Cloud Act, India's DPDP Act, RBI guidelines, the EU Digital Markets Act, and sector-specific norms across finance, healthcare, and critical infrastructure. All of these can be baked into the onboarding process, provisioning rules, and access control mechanisms. Every SaaS listing should come with a data classification tag. Every transaction should trigger a compliance audit trail. Every sectoral bundle should carry pre-validated controls for storage, encryption, access logging, and exit planning. In a recent Greyhound field note, a telco working with regional government departments re-architected its marketplace to trigger automatic policy enforcement based on the department type and workload category. This reduced legal escalations, simplified procurement, and accelerated deployment by more than 35%, with no compromise on audit readiness. This is the phase where the telco marketplace ceases to be a shop and becomes a compliance engine. Phase 4. Activate the data marketplace. Only once curation, aggregation, and policy are in place does the final opportunity come into view, the data marketplace. Telcos are in a rare position. They don't just manage services, they observe patterns. They see how sectors consume bandwidth, which apps see peak concurrency, where latency hits, and which APIs are most used. They understand network behavior not just at the packet level, but at the intent layer. This makes telcos uniquely qualified to activate anonymized, policy-aligned data marketplaces, not to sell data, but to productize insight. This could take the form of demand forecasts for logistics networks, usage analytics for smart city infrastructure, or consented signal feeds for AI model training. In Europe and Southeast Asia, early-stage pilots have shown how telcos can provide real-time, anonymized commuter data to mobility startups or offer contextualized health tech usage patterns to ecosystem regulators. The revenue model isn't just about selling data, it's about powering better decisions. But this phase only works if trust is earned. Data marketplaces must be governed, auditable, and grounded in explicit customer consent and national regulation. And the telco, already trusted to carry voice, payments, and identity, is best placed to deliver this responsibly. Phase 5. Tokenize the marketplace for programmable consumption. As telco marketplaces mature from curated storefronts to governed control planes and eventually data engines, the next natural leap is programmability. And that's where SaaS tokenization comes in. Tokenization allows software, APIs, services, and even datasets to be abstracted into modular units of consumption, programmable, trackable, and interoperable across vendors. Think of it as creating a middleware currency for the digital enterprise, one that sits between budget, policy, and usage. For telcos, tokenization can become a new monetization layer. SaaS bundles can be pre-packaged as prepaid credits. Enterprises can assign tokens to departments with pre-approved limits. Usage across vendors can be tracked centrally, enabling unified billing and policy enforcement. It also opens up opportunities for co-branded programs, cross-vendor credit exchanges, and even dynamic marketplace campaigns, where customers can redeem tokens across multiple services in real time. Tokenization also introduces a governance advantage. Instead of giving departments open access to SaaS subscriptions, enterprises can enforce token-based access control, where consumption is tied to project codes, audit windows, or compliance workflows. It's not just secure, it's explainable. In sectors like GovTech, healthcare, and SME enablement, this becomes especially powerful. A state government could provide 10,000 tokens to rural clinics to be used only on approved health tech apps. A public university could issue credits for students to access SaaS-based learning platforms. A logistics firm could reward SMEs with monthly software credits as part of a digital onboarding initiative. In short, SaaS tokenization transforms the telco marketplace from a consumption portal into a programmable services layer, turning access into currency, usage into policy, and procurement into automation. At Greyhound Research, we believe the telco marketplace cannot be a product of siloed ambition. It must be a result of layered orchestration. Each phase, from software curation to tokenization, demands not just investment, but institutional maturity. Telcos that succeed will treat the marketplace not as a portal, but as programmable infrastructure. Not as a catalog, but as a system of control. Execution here is not about speed, it's about sequence. Greyhound's standpoint: if you don't own the shelf, you're just a SKU. The digital enterprise is not short on choice. It is drowning in it. Every year brings more apps, more clouds, more APIs, more dashboards, and more promises. But what enterprise leaders are starting to realize, and what regulators are now demanding, is not more software. It's more structure. Not more intelligence, but more explainability. And that's where the real opportunity lies. For years, telcos have stood at the edge of the digital economy. Dependable but invisible, strategic but sidelined. The moment has now arrived for them to step into the center of the conversation. Not as resellers, not as passive infrastructure providers, but as platform orchestrators, compliance enforcers, and trust layer integrators. This is not a race against hyperscalers. It's a race to own the abstraction layer above them. A telco marketplace is not a competitor to AWS, Azure, or Google. It is a coordinator, a curator, and a governor that makes their services usable, accountable, and aligned to enterprise and jurisdictional policy. And if done right, if sequenced thoughtfully from software to sovereignty, from aggregation to tokenization, the telco doesn't just sell services. It sells structure. It sells control. It sells trust. The telco that owns the marketplace doesn't need to compete for listings because it becomes the listing. It becomes the distribution layer through which trust flows, compliance is enforced, and value is measured. At Greyhound Research, we believe the next chapter of digital enterprise infrastructure will not be written by those who simply scale services, but by those who govern them. Telcos that own the marketplace don't just aggregate software. They curate trust. They don't just monetize infrastructure. They orchestrate ecosystems. In a world of increasing automation and regulatory scrutiny, platform control is the new strategic currency. So here's the standpoint. If you don't own the shelf, you're just the SKU. And in the next chapter of enterprise IT, only one of those is writing the price. Analyst in focus, Sanchit Gogia. Sanchit Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CXOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thofker.com.